Mama, why are those men taking our furniture? Keisha Bennett pressed her phone closer to her ear, trying to block out her 7-year-old daughter's question while the automated voice repeated the same merciless message for the third time. Your account is seriously delinquent. Payment of $847 must be received within 24 hours to avoid service disconnection. She ended the call and knelt beside Tiana, whose wide brown eyes reflected the confusion every child feels when their world suddenly becomes unstable. Through their apartment window, Keisha could see the repo men loading their couch onto a truck. The same couch where she'd held Tiana through countless bedtime stories, where they'd celebrated small victories and weathered every storm together. They're just borrowing it, baby. Go pack your school bag. The lie tasted bitter, but what else could she say? She didn't say the real reason. Medical bills, past due rent, and a number in her bank account that looked like a joke. Keisha's hands shook as she opened the final notice taped to their door. Eviction proceedings would begin in 72 hours unless she produced $3,200 in back rent. She had exactly $23.47 in her checking account and a gas tank running on fumes. Her phone buzzed with another automated message, this time from the electric company. Disconnection scheduled for tomorrow at noon. The repo men finished loading the last piece. Tiana's small dresser, the one Keisha had painted pink with flowers when they'd moved here 2 years ago, back when hope still felt possible. One of them approached her door with paperwork. Ma'am, we need you to sign here acknowledging the reclamation of collateral for account number. I understand, Keisha interrupted, scrawling her name without reading the document. She couldn't afford to break down in front of Tiana, couldn't let her daughter see how completely they were drowning. As the truck pulled away, Keisha noticed something that seemed insignificant at the time. A small, weathered business card had fallen from her couch cushions, landing face down on the pavement. She almost ignored it, but something made her walk over and pick it up. The card was blank on both sides except for a phone number written in faded blue ink. The number looked familiar, like she'd seen it somewhere before. Mama? Tiana appeared beside her, clutching her backpack. Are we going to be okay? Keisha forced a smile and slipped the mysterious card into her pocket. We always figure it out, don't we? But as she said the words, she felt the weight of an impossible truth. This time, she had no idea how. Tonight, she would work her cleaning shift at the Meridian building downtown, mopping floors and emptying trash for people who earned more in a day than she saw in 6 months. What Keisha didn't know was that the Meridian building had someone inside it who didn't belong on the streets. And tomorrow morning, the same people threatening to shut off her lights would suddenly stop calling. All because of a faded phone number on a blank card. 6 hours later, Keisha stood in the marble lobby of the Meridian building, her yellow cleaning uniform a stark contrast to the gold-veined walls and crystal chandeliers. The building housed 3 major banks, 2 law firms, and a private equity company, the kind of businesses that sent her the threatening letters sitting in her kitchen drawer. She'd been cleaning here for 8 months, invisible to the executives who rushed past her. What they didn't know was that she had a master's degree in social work, that before the medical bills hit she'd been 3 months away from opening her own community center. Bennett, Preston Alvarez, the building supervisor, appeared from his office. You're 15 minutes late. I'm sorry, my babysitter. I don't want to hear it. Clock in and get to the 19th floor. The Summit Partners meeting ran late, and their conference room looks like a war zone. Keisha nodded and headed toward the elevator, passing the security desk where James, the night guard, suddenly found his clipboard fascinating instead of making their usual friendly small talk. The elevator climbed to 19, and the doors opened to chaos. Empty wine bottles, scattered papers, conference tables covered in celebration debris. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights sparkled far below. She began cleaning methodically, trying not to look at the presentations still glowing on the smartboard. Portfolio acquisition strategy, distressed consumer debt. Charts showed neighborhoods, demographics, profit projections. Her neighborhood was highlighted in red. Excuse me, miss? You shouldn't be taking pictures of confidential. Keisha spun around to find an elderly black man in a janitor's uniform identical to hers, but his name tag read Walter. She'd never seen him before. I'm sorry, I was just... She quickly put her phone away. Are you new here? Walter's eyes held something that didn't match his humble uniform. Started tonight. And you are? Keisha. I clean floors 12 through 20 usually. Different kind of arrangement, Walter said quietly, then gestured toward the presentation. Ugly business, buying people's pain for profit. Before Keisha could ask what he meant, voices echoed from the elevator bank. 3 executives returning. Hide, Keisha whispered. If they find us here. But Walter didn't move. They won't see us. The executives passed right by, their conversation growing clearer. This one's perfect. Single mother. Medical debt. Minimal assets, maximum pressure points. Keisha's blood ran cold. Current balance? Started at 23,000. We've got her climbing towards 67. Ready for full pressure treatment. Walter watched Keisha's face crumble as they discussed someone's family like livestock. If she can't pay? Standard protocol. Beautiful system. The voices faded. Keisha stared at the presentation screen, understanding for the first time that families like hers weren't just unlucky. They were targeted. I need to go, she whispered. Walter was quiet for several seconds. Sometimes the system isn't as final as it looks. What do you mean? Experience teaches you things about how business really works. They worked in silence for the next hour. At 2 a.m., as their shifts ended, everything changed. They exited through the service entrance when 3 security guards from the building next door blocked Walter's path to a small alcove in the alley. Well, look who's back, one sneered. Thought you learned your lesson. Walter kept walking, but they surrounded him. You can't sleep here, old man. Private property. I'm just getting out of the rain. The largest guard shoved Walter backward. Homeless garbage think you can set up camp wherever you want. Walter stumbled but kept his dignity. I'll move along. The guard kicked Walter's cart, sending cleaning supplies scattering across wet pavement. Don't come back, or next time we won't be so nice. They laughed and walked away, leaving Walter kneeling in the rain, gathering his scattered belongings. Keisha stood frozen for 10 seconds. $23.47 in her account. Eviction in 48 hours. Every dollar mattered more than air. But she walked toward Walter anyway. Are you hurt? I'm fine, he said quietly. Where do you usually sleep? Wherever they'll let me. Keisha pulled out her phone, opened the Sunset Motel app. $45 a night. She hit book. Her phone buzzed, overdraft alert. Balance, minus $21.53. Second thoughts? Walter asked, watching her face. No, everyone deserves dignity. Walter studied her face for a long moment. Even when it costs you everything? Especially then. Walter stared like he'd just seen proof of something he'd stopped believing in. Keisha, he said softly, tomorrow morning, don't open the door for anyone until you hear my voice. What do you mean? But Walter was already walking toward the motel office, leaving Keisha standing in the rain with a mysterious warning and the growing sense that her simple act of kindness had just set something in motion that was much bigger than either of them. Somewhere above the alley, a camera blinked red. At 7:23 a.m., Keisha's phone rang with a call from Mercy General Hospital, jolting her awake on the air mattress that now served as her bed. Ms. Bennett, this is Dr. Chavez from Oncology. I'm calling about Tiana's treatment schedule. Keisha's heart stopped. Is she okay? What's wrong? She's fine, but we have a problem. Your insurance company is requesting additional pre-authorization for her next round of chemotherapy. Without it, we can't proceed with Monday's appointment. What kind of pre-authorization? They want proof that you can cover the increased copay. The new amount is $8,400 per treatment cycle. The number hit Keisha like a physical blow. $8,000? It was $1,200 last month. I'm sorry. Insurance companies often restructure coverage for experimental treatments. If you can't provide payment assurance by Monday morning, we'll have to postpone her care. Keisha ended the call and stared at her overdraft alert from last night. Negative $21. Tiana's life-saving treatment now cost more than Keisha made in 4 months. She was making coffee with tap water when someone knocked on her door. Gentle but persistent. Keisha? It's Walter. She opened the door to find Walter transformed. Gone was the weathered janitor's uniform. He wore a clean button-down shirt and khakis that fit him properly, and he carried himself differently, straighter, more confident. You look different. Walter stepped inside, glancing around her nearly empty apartment. How are you feeling about last night? Confused. You said not to open the door for anyone except you. I did, and you're about to understand why. Walter pulled out a smartphone, definitely not what a homeless man should be carrying, and made a call. It's me. Yes, she made the choice. Begin the transfers. He paused, looking at Keisha. I didn't always mop floors, Keisha. I used to own buildings like this. He ended the call and looked at Keisha directly. In approximately 20 minutes, you're going to receive several phone calls. Don't agree to anything. Just listen. Walter, what's happening? Before he could answer, Keisha's phone rang. The caller ID showed her medical debt collection agency. Answer it, Walter said. Put it on speaker. Hello, Ms. Bennett. This is David Carter from Recovery Solutions. I'm calling with excellent news regarding your account. Keisha looked at Walter, who nodded for her to continue. What kind of news? Your entire medical debt portfolio has been purchased by a medical debt relief foundation. All balances have been marked as satisfied in full, effective immediately. That's impossible. Ma'am, I'm looking at the transfer documents right now. $67,000 in total debt, purchased and marked satisfied. You owe nothing. Walter was watching her face carefully as the words sank in. Who purchased it? The documentation shows only that it's a private foundation focused on medical debt relief. Very discreet benefactor. After she hung up, Keisha stared at Walter. Did you? Her phone rang again. This time, Mercy General. Ms. Bennett? Dr. Chavez again. I wanted to let you know that Tiana's treatment authorization came through. Full coverage for the next 2 years, including all experimental protocols. Someone established a comprehensive medical fund in her name. When that call ended, Walter's phone buzzed. He checked it, then moved to her window. They're here. Who's here? Through the window, Keisha could see a black luxury SUV pulling up outside her apartment building, followed by a second vehicle. Men in expensive suits stepped out, not threatening but definitely official. Walter, you need to tell me what's happening. Those are attorneys and bank representatives. They're here to make your housing situation permanent. I don't understand. Walter turned from the window to face her fully. Keisha, last night you made a choice to help someone when it cost you everything. That choice proved something I needed to know. What did it prove? That you're the kind of person this world can't afford to lose. A knock came at the door. Professional, measured. Ms. Bennett? We're here regarding your housing account. Walter nodded for her to answer. She opened the door to find 3 people in business attire, 2 men and a woman, all carrying leather portfolios. Ms. Bennett, I'm Nicole Kim from First National Bank. We're here to discuss your rental agreement and some recent changes to your account status. What changes? Your rent has been paid current through the end of next year, and an escrow account to cover your rent for the next year. We also have some paperwork regarding debt forgiveness that requires your signature. Keisha looked back at Walter, who was watching this unfold with quiet satisfaction. Additionally, the woman continued, there's been an education fund established for your daughter. Full college tuition, plus graduate school if she chooses. Who set this up? A private foundation. All the paperwork is here for your review. As the representatives spread documents across her kitchen table, Keisha realized that Walter's warning had been about this. About her life being completely transformed overnight because she'd shown kindness to a stranger. But even as relief flooded through her, she was beginning to understand that Walter wasn't just some lucky homeless man who'd found a benefactor. The timing was too perfect, his knowledge too specific, his transformation too complete. Walter, she said quietly, who are you really? Before he could answer, his phone rang. The conversation was brief, but his expression changed as he listened. We have a problem, he said after hanging up. The people who were celebrating last night in that conference room, they just found out about the debt transfers. So, through the window, Keisha could see more vehicles arriving, different vehicles with different kinds of men stepping out. These ones moved differently, confident, practiced. The kind of men who didn't raise their voices because they didn't have to. Walter's jaw tightened. They just realized the debt portfolio they were celebrating last night is gone. So what? Keisha asked. So they're going to try to reverse it, Walter said. They'll threaten you, confuse you, shove paperwork in your face, and hope you sign your life away. He leaned closer. You don't sign anything new. Not a single page. Not without my attorney present. Keisha felt the air change, relief turning into something sharper. Because this wasn't over. The point of no return wasn't violence. It was visibility. Once you embarrass powerful lenders, they don't forget. They sue. They smear. They retaliate with rules and paperwork. Walter met her eyes. You helped me last night. Now let me protect you legally. The men from the second set of vehicles approached Keisha's door exactly 12 minutes after the bank representatives left. Their knock was different, harder, more insistent. Ms. Bennett? Preston Alvarez from Summit Partners. We need to discuss some irregularities in your account transfers. Walter moved quickly to the window, his phone already out. Don't open it. But they said, they're going to claim the debt forgiveness was fraudulent, that you need to sign new paperwork to protect yourself from legal complications. Through the door, Alvarez's voice continued. Ma'am, we have federal documentation showing that the foundation that purchased your debt doesn't exist. You could be facing charges for participating in financial fraud if we don't resolve this immediately. Keisha felt her stomach drop. Walter, is that possible? It's a lie designed to scare you into signing away what you just received. Alvarez knocked again. Ms. Bennett, we're offering a one-time settlement. You sign a simple agreement acknowledging the debt transfer was invalid, and we'll reduce your balance to just $15,000. If you don't respond, we'll file an emergency motion and your benefits and accounts will be frozen pending review. Walter pulled Keisha away from the door. They can't do any of that, but they're betting you don't know that. How do I know you're telling the truth and they're lying? Walter showed her his phone screen, which displayed legal documents in real time. Because I'm watching the actual transfers as they process through federal banking systems. Everything we did this morning is legitimate and final. You have access to banking systems? Before Walter could answer, Keisha's phone rang. Dr. Chavez from the hospital. Ms. Bennett, I'm sorry to bother you again, but we've received some concerning information about the medical fund established for Tiana. Keisha's heart sank. What kind of concerning information? We've been told the fund may be connected to fraudulent financial activity. Until we can verify its legitimacy, we may need to suspend Tiana's treatment authorization. Walter grabbed the phone. Dr. Chavez, this is Walter Grayson. Who told you the fund was fraudulent? A Mr. Alvarez called about 30 minutes ago. He said he was investigating financial crimes and needed us to freeze any accounts connected to the Bennett family. Walter's expression hardened. Dr. Chavez, Alvarez has no legal authority to freeze medical accounts. He's a private debt collector trying to intimidate you into reverting Tiana's treatment status. But he said there could be federal charges. There won't be federal charges. I guarantee it. After Walter ended the call, he turned to Keisha. They're attacking on multiple fronts. The debt, the housing, Tiana's medical care. They want you to panic and sign something, anything, that gives them back control. Alvarez's voice came through the door again, more aggressive now. Ms. Bennett, we know you're in there. We have documentation that needs your immediate attention. Do they have legal authority to demand that? Keisha asked. Absolutely not. But they're hoping you don't know that. Walter's phone buzzed again. His face tightened. What is it? Keisha asked. They called Tiana's school, Walter said. They told them there's a medical emergency and tried to get her released to someone who isn't you. Keisha's stomach dropped. Did it work? Walter shook his head. The school refused. But now they've flagged you. They're trying to make you look unstable. Another knock sounded, calmer this time official. Ms. Bennett? I'm with Family Services. We received a report and need to verify Tiana's safety. Keisha's throat went dry. This wasn't a gun-to-the-head threat. It was worse. It was paperwork weaponized. Keisha, I can't run from child services. That makes me look guilty. You're not running. You're protecting your family while we prove Alvarez is the criminal. Walter started gathering the paperwork the bank representatives had left. Keisha, do you trust me? She looked at his face, determined, protective, but also carrying something she couldn't quite identify. Fear? Guilt? I want to trust you, but I don't even know who you are. You know the most important thing about who I am. You saw it last night when you helped me. Walter, that's not enough anymore. My daughter's life is at stake. Walter stopped packing and looked at her directly. 3 years ago, I ran a medical debt relief foundation. My partner framed me, stole it, and buried the truth. I stayed invisible while I rebuilt and gathered proof. So you really were homeless? I chose to be invisible while I gathered evidence to prove my innocence and expose the corruption network that destroyed my foundation. Through the window, they could see the child services worker approaching the building, clipboard in hand. The people who stole my foundation, Walter continued, are the same people who bought your debt. Alvarez works for them. Last night, when you showed me kindness, you proved that I was fighting for the right reasons, to protect families like yours. And this morning, I used everything I've rebuilt over 3 years to save your family. But doing that exposed me to the people who've been hunting me. Keisha felt the weight of realization. So helping us put you in danger. Helping you reminded me why the danger was worth it. The child services worker was in the building now, her footsteps echoing in the hallway. Walter showed Keisha a message on his phone. Sign a rescission agreement by noon, or we challenge the medical authorization and report you for fraud. Walter, can you stop this? Yes. But it means giving Alvarez exactly what he wants. Which is me. And all the evidence I've gathered against his network. The social worker knocked. Ma'am, I need to speak with you about Tiana's living situation. Walter looked at Keisha with an expression of profound regret. I'm sorry. This is my fault. Helping your family painted a target on all of us. Walter, there has to be another way. There is, Keisha said suddenly, looking at both of them. They want you scared and alone, she said. So we do the opposite. We make it public. We make it documented. And we make them touch the paperwork, on record. Walter stared at her for a moment, then his expression shifted from despair to determination. You're right. We stop hiding and start exposing. What do you mean? We make Alvarez come to us, in a place where everything he says and does becomes part of the public record. Keisha realized that the morning's miracle, debt forgiven, treatment secured, housing guaranteed, was under attack from every angle. But Alvarez had made one crucial mistake. He was so confident in his intimidation tactics that he was willing to put them in writing. We document everything, she said. Every threat, every lie, every attempt to reverse what was legally done. Walter smiled for the first time since the attacks began. And we make him do it where he can't take it back. As the social worker waited outside and Alvarez continued his threats through the door, Keisha understood that this wasn't about just saving her family anymore. It was about exposing a system that used fear and confusion to steal from people who couldn't fight back. And sometimes the most powerful response to intimidation wasn't surrender. It was transparency. At 11:15 a.m., Keisha walked into the Meridian Building lobby carrying Tiana's hand and a folder of documents, with Walter beside her. The same marble walls that had witnessed her exhaustion as a night janitor now reflected her determination as someone who refused to be intimidated. The lobby was busier than usual, too busy. Men in suits clustered near the elevators, all of them checking phones, all of them watching the entrance. They brought backup, Walter observed quietly. Good, Keisha said. More witnesses. Alvarez emerged from the elevator bank, flanked by two other men she didn't recognize. His smile was the kind that never reached the eyes, practiced, predatory, designed to make people feel small. Ms. Bennett, I'm glad you came to your senses. I came to understand my options, Keisha replied evenly. In public, with documentation. Alvarez's smile flickered slightly. He gestured toward the conference room. Shall we discuss this privately? No, Walter said. Everything we discussed today happens here, in the lobby, where the security cameras can record it. Alvarez looked at Walter for the first time, his expression shifting from confidence to recognition to something that looked almost like fear. Walter Grayson, Alvarez said slowly. We thought you were dead. Disappointed. Surprised. 3 years is a long time to stay invisible. Keisha realized that other conversations in the lobby had stopped. People were watching, sensing drama they didn't understand but couldn't ignore. Walter pulled out his phone and opened a recording app. Preston, why don't you explain to everyone here why you've been threatening Ms. Bennett and her 7-year-old daughter? I'm not threatening anyone. I'm protecting her from financial fraud. By trying to reverse legally processed debt forgiveness? By investigating suspicious transactions that could implicate her in money laundering. Keisha felt cold spreading through her chest. Money laundering. The word sounded serious, official, criminal. But Walter's expression remained calm. Show her the rescission agreement, Preston. Alvarez hesitated, then pulled documents from his briefcase. Ms. Bennett, if you sign this simple acknowledgement that the debt transfer was processed in error, we can resolve everything quietly. Walter took the document and read it aloud, his voice carrying across the lobby. By signing below, the undersigned acknowledges that debt forgiveness received was the result of fraudulent representation and agrees to restore the original debt balance plus penalties and legal fees. Keisha stared at the paper, then looked up at the growing crowd of witnesses. He told me it was to protect me. But the first sentence says I committed fraud. That's not protection. That's a trap. Murmurs spread through the lobby. People understood exactly what they were seeing. Legal language can be confusing, Alvarez started. It's not confusing, Walter interrupted. It's deliberately deceptive. You're asking her to confess to fraud she didn't commit, then pay extra penalties for your accusation. More people in the lobby were listening now. Bank employees, attorneys, other families who might be dealing with similar situations. Alvarez's backup stepped closer, but Walter held up his phone. Everything you say and do is being recorded, and it's already been sent to our attorney. Alvarez's jaw tightened. Walter, you're interfering with a legitimate debt collection process. I'm documenting an attempted fraud. Walter's voice carried clearly across the marble space. Preston, tell everyone here how much Ms. Bennett originally owed in medical bills. That's confidential. $23,000, Walter said, for her daughter's cancer treatment. Tell them how much you've inflated it to now. Alvarez's face flushed. Collection fees and interest are standard. $67,000, Walter continued. You nearly tripled a medical debt from a mother trying to save her child's life. Keisha heard someone behind her whisper, 67,000? More people were gathering. Families, individuals who recognized the numbers because they'd lived them. Alvarez tried to regain control. Mr. Grayson, you're wanted by federal authorities for embezzlement. Perhaps we should focus on your crimes instead of making baseless accusations. Walter smiled coldly. Excellent idea. Let's discuss my crimes. He raised his voice so everyone in the lobby could hear. 3 years ago, I ran a medical debt relief foundation that helped families avoid exactly what you did to Ms. Bennett. My business partner, David Kim, decided he could make more money by stealing my foundation and converting it into a predatory operation. Keisha felt puzzle pieces clicking into place. For 3 years, I've been documenting every illegal tactic, every inflated fee, every family you've destroyed. Ms. Bennett isn't your victim. She's your proof of guilt. The lobby had gone completely quiet except for Walter's voice. Alvarez pulled out his phone. I'm calling security. Security already knows, Walter said, because the building's legal department already has copies of your threat letters. They're stored off-site. You can't make this disappear. Keisha stared at Walter, understanding for the first time the full scope of what he'd sacrificed to help her family. Alvarez's backup started moving toward the exits, but Walter continued loudly enough for everyone to hear. The debt you're trying to make her pay? It was purchased this morning by a legitimate foundation operating under federal oversight. Hundreds of families. Tens of millions taken, one medical bill at a time. That's impossible, Alvarez snarled. Check your accounts, Walter said calmly. Alvarez frantically typed on his phone, his face growing paler with each screen. Walter's phone buzzed with a notification. He glanced at it, then looked back at Alvarez. An email subject line just popped up. Injunction filed. Alvarez's expression collapsed from anger to panic. How? He whispered. Walter's voice carried the weight of 3 years of careful planning. Your threats are on record. The rescission agreement is on paper. And you brought it to her door. Keisha realized that every family gathering around them, every person listening with tears in their eyes, every witness in this lobby represented someone who had been targeted by Alvarez's network. Walter, she said quietly, how many families? Over 800 families that we know of. The number echoed through the lobby. 800 families stolen from during medical crises, housing emergencies, situations exactly like hers. Alvarez was backing toward the exit, but Walter's voice followed him. Preston, Ms. Bennett's choice to help someone she thought was homeless wasn't about money or revenge. It was about proving that some people still choose compassion over profit. As Alvarez fled the building with his backup, Keisha understood the devastating truth of what had just happened. Walter hadn't just saved her family. He had used her genuine act of kindness as the foundation for bringing down an entire network of predators who had been systematically destroying vulnerable families for years. But more than that, he had sacrificed 3 years of his life, his identity, his safety, everything, to make sure that her simple moment of helping a stranger became the catalyst for justice that hundreds of other families would never have received otherwise. Walter, she said, tears streaming down her face, you could have stopped Alvarez years ago. Why wait until now? Walter looked around the lobby, at all the faces of people who finally understood they weren't alone in their struggles. Because I needed proof that this wasn't about my personal vendetta. I needed evidence that I was fighting for the right reasons. Which was, your kindness to someone you thought had nothing proved that compassion still exists. That some people will sacrifice for strangers not because they have to, but because it's who they are. Keisha felt the full weight of the midpoint devastation. Not because everything was lost, but because she finally understood how much had been at stake all along. Walter's phone buzzed. He read it once, then handed it to Keisha. They accepted the filing, he said. Emergency hearing. Today. Keisha's stomach tightened, because the next part wasn't a miracle. It was a fight on record. 2 hours later, Keisha sat in attorney Nicole Kim's office, watching her daughter color in the corner, while adults discussed her family's future in legal terms she barely understood. The emergency hearing is at 4 p.m., Nicole explained, spreading documents across her desk. But there are complications we didn't anticipate. Walter leaned forward. What kind of complications? They filed a countermotion claiming Walter is still under a civil consent order and barred from handling financial transactions. Walter's face tightened. That order was vacated. Nicole nodded. Then we need the court document that proves it. Walter pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. Then tapped again. Error message flashed, account access revoked. His jaw clenched. They locked me out. Nicole's expression was grim. Without proof the consent order was vacated, the judge could rule that Walter doesn't have standing to file on behalf of the foundation, which would invalidate this morning's debt transfers. Keisha felt the room spinning. So Alvarez gets everything back? Worse, Nicole continued. They can try to paint you as a willing participant and freeze the relief while they investigate. Through the office window, Keisha could see news vans pulling up outside. Somehow, word of the morning's confrontation had leaked. Why are reporters here? She asked. Nicole checked her phone. Someone recorded the lobby interaction and posted it online. It's gone viral. #DebtJustice is trending. Walter looked at the news vans with growing dread. That's not good. Not yet. We're not ready for media scrutiny. Nicole's phone rang. She answered, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up with a troubled expression. That was the hospital. Dr. Chavez called to say they've received multiple calls from reporters asking about Tiana's treatment and the funding sources. Keisha felt panic rising. Are they going to suspend her care again? They're asking if you want to sign a privacy waiver, because reporters are pushing for confirmation, and the hospital won't say a word without your consent. What happens if I say no? They treat her quietly, but you lose the public sympathy element that might help in court. And if I say yes? Your daughter's private medical information becomes part of a national news story. Walter stood and moved to the window, watching more reporters arrive. Keisha, there's something else you need to know. What now? Alvarez's people have been calling other families from the foundation database. They're offering cash settlements in exchange for statements, saying I coerced them into participating in fraudulent debt relief. Keisha stared at him. Will they take the money? Some will. When you're drowning in debt, and someone offers you $5,000 to sign a paper saying the person who helped you is actually a criminal, desperation makes people do things they never thought they would. Nicole's tablet buzzed with an alert. 2 families have already signed affidavits. And they're pressuring more. That's not what happened, Keisha said. I know that. You know that. But in court, it becomes their word against his. Walter pulled out a backup phone and immediately started making calls. My attorney should have copies of the clearance papers. David? It's Walter. I need you to bring everything to the courthouse immediately. He ended the call looking defeated. His office won't answer. Nicole checked her phone. They filed an emergency motion to seal and freeze your foundation records pending review. Walter exhaled slowly. They're burying the paper trail. Keisha felt the weight of systematic destruction. Alvarez's people weren't just fighting them in court. They were eliminating their ability to fight at all. Nicole's phone buzzed again. The hospital just received a legal demand letter. They're preparing a court request for Tiana's records. Who's making the request? Alvarez's legal team. They're claiming that if the debt relief was fraudulent, they need to verify that the medical treatment was actually necessary. Keisha's voice broke. They're questioning whether my daughter really needed cancer treatment. Walter sat down heavily. They're not just attacking the foundation. They're attacking Tiana's right to have been sick. Through the window, Keisha could see a reporter doing a live broadcast, gesturing toward the office building. The cheer-in read, debt relief or fraud. Mother's fight goes public. Nicole checked her watch. We have 90 minutes until the hearing. I need to know right now. Do we fight or do we accept the settlement? Keisha looked at Walter, whose 3-year sacrifice was crumbling in real time. Then she looked at Tiana, whose private medical struggle was about to become public entertainment. If we settle, what happens to the other families? The foundation withdraws all pending relief. Families who haven't been paid yet lose their help. How many families? 237 families with active cases. Keisha felt the impossible weight of choice. Fight for justice and risk everything, including Tiana's privacy and Walter's freedom. Or surrender and watch hundreds of other families lose their only chance for help. Walter looked at her with an expression of profound regret. Keisha, I'm sorry. I pulled you into something bigger than I realized. You have the right to walk away. And leave you to face this alone? Better than destroying your family for a principle. Keisha stood and moved to where Tiana was coloring. Her daughter had drawn a picture of 3 people holding hands under a rainbow. Her, Walter, and Tiana herself. Mama, Tiana said without looking up. Are the people on TV talking about us? Keisha's heart broke a little. Yes, baby. Are we in trouble? We're in a fight. Tiana considered this with 7-year-old seriousness. Are we going to win? Keisha looked at the drawing, 3 people holding hands, and realized that Tiana had already decided Walter was family. I don't know, sweetheart. Tiana looked up with complete trust. Then we keep fighting until we do. Nicole cleared her throat. I hate to pressure you, but I need an answer. Keisha looked at Walter, at Nicole, at the news vans outside, at her daughter's drawing. We fight, she said. If they want to make this public, then let's make it really public. We tell the whole truth. Walter looked at her with surprise and admiration. Nicole looked concerned. That's extremely risky. Once you go fully public, there's no taking it back. Good, Keisha said. Because I'm tired of them controlling the narrative. Nicole's phone buzzed. She read it once, then looked up. They moved the hearing up, she said. 1 hour. Not 4. Walter went still. Keisha tightened her grip on the folder. Because now they didn't just have to win. They had to win fast. 43 minutes later, Keisha walked up the courthouse steps carrying Tiana's hand, Walter beside her, and Nicole Kim trailing with a briefcase full of documents that might not be enough. The media presence was overwhelming. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and protesters held signs reading both, "Debt Justice Now," and "Stop the Fraud." Ms. Bennett, a reporter called out, are you prepared to testify under oath about your relationship with Walter Grayson? Keisha kept walking, but Tiana pressed closer to her side. Mama, why are they yelling? Because some people think we did something wrong, and other people think we did something right. Which people are right? We're about to find out, baby. Inside the courthouse, the hallway buzzed with activity. Alvarez stood near the courtroom doors, flanked by 3 attorneys and looking confident in a way that made Keisha's stomach clench. Walter, Alvarez called out as they approached. Last chance to be reasonable. Walter didn't break stride. We're past reasonable, Preston. Are you? Because I have signed affidavits from families stating that you promised them debt relief in exchange for testimony. Families who trusted you. Nicole whispered urgently to Walter. How many now? Alvarez continued loudly enough for the gathering reporters to hear. Ms. Bennett, you still have the option to walk away from this. Sign a simple statement that you were misled, accept a reasonable settlement, and protect your daughter from what's about to happen in there. What's about to happen? Keisha asked. If this turns into a public fight, my lawyers will try to drag your daughter's medical situation into it. Not because it's relevant, but because it scares people. And it scares hospitals. Keisha felt ice in her veins. You're going to weaponize my daughter's illness? I'm explaining the consequences of choosing public testimony instead of accepting a private settlement. Walter stepped forward. You're threatening to attack a 7-year-old's medical care to intimidate her mother. I'm explaining how the legal system works when people refuse reasonable offers. Nicole checked her watch. We need to go in. The hearing starts in 3 minutes. As they moved toward the courtroom doors, Alvarez played his final card. Ms. Bennett, he called out. The settlement offer expires the moment court goes on the record. $50,000, all debts forgiven, no public testimony required. Your daughter's privacy protected. What's it worth to you? Keisha stopped walking. $50,000. Enough to move somewhere new, start over, never worry about medical bills again. And Walter? She asked. Mr. Grayson faces the consequences of his choices. But you and your daughter go free. Walter looked at her with understanding. Keisha, take the deal. This was never supposed to be your fight. What about the other families? Alvarez shrugged. Not your problem. And what about the truth? The truth is that you're a good mother who got caught up in something bigger than you understood. Take the money. Protect your child. Keisha looked down at Tiana, who was watching the adults with wide eyes. Mama, Tiana said quietly, what's a settlement? It means we take money and stop fighting. But what happens to Walter? Alvarez answered before Keisha could. Walter made his choices. He'll face the consequences. Tiana looked at Walter, then back at her mother. But he helped us when we needed help. That's different, sweetheart. This is grown-up business. Tiana considered this with 7-year-old logic. Mama, you said helping people is always right. Even when it's hard. Keisha felt the weight of the impossible choice crystallizing. Take the money and safety, or trust that the truth would be enough to protect everyone she cared about. 2 minutes, Nicole said urgently. Through the courtroom doors, Keisha could see the judge taking the bench, reporters filling the gallery, families she'd never met sitting in the back rows. People whose futures would be determined by her next decision. Walter touched her arm gently. Whatever you choose, I understand. Alvarez held out a pen and a 1-page document. 50,000, all debts forgiven, your daughter's privacy protected. Just sign your name. Keisha looked at the paper, then at Walter's face, then at Tiana's trusting expression. If I sign this, you leave Walter alone? Mr. Grayson will face appropriate consequences for his actions, but you won't be involved. And if I don't sign? Then we go in there and everything becomes a fight. Your finances, your relationship with a man who's been lying about his identity for 3 years. Everything. Keisha felt Tiana's small hand slip into hers. Mama, Tiana whispered, remember what you taught me about doing the right thing even when it's scary? Keisha looked down at her daughter, seeing absolute trust and faith that her mother would make the right choice. Ms. Bennett, Alvarez said, extending the pen. 30 seconds. Keisha took the pen. She looked at the settlement document, then at Walter's resigned expression, then at the courtroom doors where justice waited. She signed her name, but not on Alvarez's document. She signed a sworn witness declaration at the clerk's desk, officially entering herself as someone willing to testify under oath. We're going in, she said, handing Alvarez his unsigned settlement back. And we're telling the truth. All of it. Alvarez's confident smile faltered. Ms. Bennett, you're making a terrible mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Walter stared at her with something between admiration and terror. Keisha, once we walk through those doors, we stop being victims. We become witnesses. She picked up Tiana and looked directly at Alvarez. You want to weaponize my daughter's illness? Fine. Let America hear about a 7-year-old fighting cancer, while debt collectors tried to steal her treatment money. Alvarez's face went pale. You don't understand what you're up against. I understand that you're afraid of the truth. That's all I need to know. As they walked into the courtroom, Keisha realized that the impossible choice hadn't been between money and principle. It had been between fear and trust. Fear that the system would destroy them. Trust that the truth would set them free. Inside the courtroom, Judge Elaine Harper looked stern and impatient as the bailiff called for order. This is an emergency hearing regarding injunctive relief. Ms. Bennett, I understand you filed to testify as a witness. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Alvarez, you have objections to these proceedings? Alvarez's attorney stood, but his confidence seemed shaken. Your Honor, we believe this entire action lacks proper foundation. Judge Harper looked around the packed courtroom, then back at Keisha. Very well. Bailiff, swear her in. Keisha raised her hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. And in the next 5 minutes, Keisha Bennett was going to say names out loud. Names that had never been said in a courtroom before. Ms. Bennett, Judge Harper began. Please state for the record your relationship to Mr. Grayson and the circumstances that brought you to this courtroom. Keisha looked out at the packed gallery, reporters with notebooks ready, families leaning forward, cameras focused on her face. For 3 years, she'd been invisible to the world. Now everyone was watching. Your Honor, 4 nights ago I was working my second job as a janitor in the Meridian building. I was $23 away from being homeless, and my daughter was 24 hours away from losing her cancer treatment. The courtroom was completely silent. I witnessed a man being assaulted by security guards because he was homeless. I used my last $45 to get him a motel room for 1 night. Did you expect anything in return? Judge Harper asked. No, Your Honor. I expected to overdraw my bank account and figure out how to explain to my 7-year-old daughter why the electricity was getting shut off. Alvarez's attorney started to object, but Judge Harper waved him silent. Ms. Bennett, What happened the next morning? The man I helped revealed his identity as Walter Grayson. He told me he had the resources to help my family, and within hours, my medical debts had been forgiven and my daughter's treatment was secure. Did Mr. Grayson ask you to do anything in exchange for this help? He asked me to tell the truth about what debt collectors had been doing to my family. And what was the truth? Keisha took a breath and looked directly at Alvarez. The truth is that Mr. Alvarez's company had taken a $23,000 medical bill and turned it into $67,000 in 18 months. They did this by adding fees, interest, and penalties that were designed to make the debt impossible to pay. Alvarez's attorney stood. Objection, Your Honor. Ms. Bennett isn't qualified to interpret financial documents. Your Honor, Keisha said before the judge could respond, I'm qualified to read my own bills. She pulled out a folder and removed a document. This is my original hospital bill. $23,400. This is what Mr. Alvarez's company claimed I owed last week. $67,200. Judge Harper examined the documents. Mr. Alvarez, how do you explain this discrepancy? Alvarez's attorney whispered frantically to his client before standing. Your Honor, collection fees and legal costs are standard industry practice. $44,000 in fees? Judge Harper looked skeptical. Your Honor, Keisha continued, may I show the court what those fees actually were? She pulled out more papers. Late fees charged before I was late. Legal fees for lawsuits that were never filed. Interest rates that changed without notice. And something called acceleration fees that made the entire balance due immediately if I missed any payment by more than one day. The gallery murmured as reporters frantically took notes. Ms. Bennett, did anyone explain these fees to you when they were applied? No, Your Honor. I found out about them when Mr. Alvarez's office called to threaten me with arrest if I didn't pay immediately. Arrest? For medical debt? They told me I could be charged with fraud for refusing to pay legitimate debts and that my daughter could be removed from my custody if I was arrested. Judge Harper turned to Alvarez's table. Mr. Alvarez, did you or your employees threaten Ms. Bennett with arrest for medical debt? Alvarez's attorney was sweating now. Your Honor, our client may have used strong language to encourage payment, but that's not what I asked. Yes or no? Alvarez finally stood himself. We were motivating payment. Mr. Alvarez, medical debt is not a criminal matter in this state. You cannot be arrested for owing money to a hospital. We were trying to encourage. You were lying to a desperate mother to extort money she didn't owe. Keisha felt the momentum building. Your Honor, I can prove he lied. But I need the court to hear his own words. Walter stood and addressed the court. Your Honor, if I may, I can provide that proof. Mr. Grayson, you're not sworn in. I'm prepared to be sworn in, Your Honor. After taking his oath, Walter pulled out a tablet and connected it to the courtroom's display system. Your Honor, for 3 years I've been documenting Mr. Alvarez's operation. What we see here isn't just debt collection. It's systematic fraud targeting vulnerable families. The screen filled with charts, phone records, and financial documents. Through counsel, we obtained this footage under preservation order from Meridian Building Management. The screen switched to security footage from the conference room. This is from Monday night, the same night Ms. Bennett showed me kindness. Mr. Alvarez and his associates celebrating the Bennett acquisition. That's what they called her family's financial destruction. The audio played Alvarez's voice from the conference room. This one's perfect. Single mother. Medical debt. Minimal assets. Maximum pressure points. The courtroom was completely silent as Alvarez's own words condemned him. And here, Walter continued, switching to phone recordings, are key calls where Mr. Alvarez explained to his team how to threaten families with arrest for civil debt. Alvarez's recorded voice filled the courtroom. Tell them they'll be arrested for fraud. Tell them their kids will be taken away. Fear works better than facts. Judge Harper looked at Alvarez with disgust. Mr. Alvarez, stand up. Alvarez reluctantly stood, his face pale. Bailiff, detain Mr. Alvarez. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney and ordering the clerk to notify the Attorney General's office. As handcuffs clicked around Alvarez's wrists, Walter continued his presentation. Your Honor, Ms. Bennett's act of kindness to a stranger she thought was homeless gave me something I'd been waiting 3 years to find. Proof that this fight wasn't about revenge, but about justice. What kind of proof? Proof that some people will still sacrifice for others, even when they have nothing to give. Her kindness validated that the families I was fighting for deserved someone willing to sacrifice everything to help them. Judge Harper looked around the courtroom, at the faces of families who were finally seeing justice, at the reporters documenting every word, at Alvarez being led away in handcuffs. The court grants a temporary restraining order stopping all collection activity tied to these accounts. A hearing for a preliminary injunction is set within 10 days. A court-appointed monitor will review the transfers and the affected accounts. The courtroom erupted in cheers, tears, and applause. Furthermore, these findings will be referred to state and federal investigators for appropriate action. As Alvarez disappeared through the courtroom doors in handcuffs, Walter turned to Keisha. "You did it," he said quietly. "Your kindness saved everyone." Keisha looked around at the celebrating families, the vindicated truth, the justice that had finally arrived. "We did it," she corrected. Together. Outside the courtroom, reporters surrounded them with questions, but all Keisha could focus on was Tiana's small voice asking, "Mama, did we win?" Keisha swallowed. "We did. Does that mean other kids like me will get their medicine?" Walter knelt down to Tiana's level. "It means every kid like you will get their medicine. Because your mama showed the world that kindness is the most powerful force there is." Outside, for the first time in months, Keisha's phone stayed silent. No collectors. No threats. Just one message from the hospital. Authorization confirmed. Keisha closed her eyes, because that was the only headline that mattered. 6 months later, Keisha stood in the backyard of a house she actually owned, watching Tiana chase butterflies with energy that only came from being completely healthy. The latest scans had shown her cancer was in remission. Dr. Chavez had used the word with a smile that reached her eyes. "Mama, look," Tiana called out, her arms spread wide as she spun in the afternoon sunlight. "I can run fast again." Keisha smiled, remembering the days when Tiana could barely walk to the kitchen. Those felt like memories from someone else's life. "Ms. Bennett," a familiar voice made her turn. It was Nicole Kim, looking relaxed and purposeful in a way that came from winning battles that mattered. "Nicole, what brings you by?" "The final numbers from the Alvarez case. I thought you'd want to hear them in person." Walter emerged from the house, carrying a pitcher of lemonade and wearing the kind of contentment that 3 years of hiding had never allowed him. "Good news, I hope?" Nicole's smile was radiant. "Hundreds of families got restitution. Alvarez and his people are facing charges." "And the other debt collection companies?" Keisha asked. "New rules are being drafted. More oversight is already in place." Walter set down the lemonade and shook his head in amazement. All because someone chose to help a stranger. Nicole opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "Speaking of helping, the Medical Debt Relief Foundation has received over 200 applications this month from families facing situations similar to yours. Are we going to help them all?" Tiana asked seriously. Walter looked at Keisha, and she saw the question in his eyes, the same question that had been growing between them for months. "We're going to try," Keisha said. "All of us. Together. Does that mean Walter's staying forever?" Tiana asked with 7-year-old directness. Walter and Keisha exchanged the look of two people who had been through impossible circumstances and emerged not just surviving, but truly living. "If your mama will have me," Walter said softly. "I think we've been a family for a while now," Keisha replied. "We just needed time to make it official." Tiana whooped with joy and threw her arms around both of them. Nicole cleared her throat gently. "There's one more thing. The foundation board wants to offer you a position, Keisha. Director of Family Advocacy. Full salary, benefits, and the chance to help other families navigate what you went through." Keisha felt tears of gratitude. "A year ago, I had a master's degree I couldn't use and dreams I couldn't afford. Now you have experience that can't be taught and wisdom that can't be bought," Walter finished. As Nicole left and the afternoon stretched into evening, the three of them sat on their front porch. The same porch where Keisha had once counted her last $23. "Tell it again," Tiana mumbled sleepily. Keisha kissed her forehead. "You helped someone who needed help." Walter smiled. "And it came back bigger than we expected." Tiana yawned. "So we do it again tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Keisha agreed. As they carried Tiana inside, Keisha's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Bennett, I saw your story. My daughter has leukemia. We're drowning. Can you help?" Keisha stared at the screen. 6 months ago, she would have had nothing to offer but $45 and a prayer. Walter stepped beside her and didn't hesitate. "Say yes," he whispered. Keisha typed one word. Yes. And for the first time, she meant it, because this time she actually could. What did this story teach you about kindness when you have almost nothing? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world. Because sometimes the most powerful revolutions start with the smallest acts of love.